All right, David, welcome in to the. I already messed that up. Pause that. All right, David, welcome into the Deal Finders podcast. We're so glad to have you, man.
Thanks a lot for having me, Andrew. It's really a pleasure, man. Obviously, we've been able to connect a lot more recently, man. So I'm glad to finally be able to jump on your podcast. And congrats on being able to start it, my man.
Awesome, awesome. So, hey, let's get started real quick. I know nobody really cares, right? Who we are. They want to know how to grow their business. But real fast, tell everybody who you are, what market you're in, and what your main business is.
Yeah, absolutely. So really quickly, my name is David Pupo. I'm in the Orlando, Florida market, but primarily we do the entire state and actually do a few other states in the sun and in the southeast. But yeah, really right now our still primary method is being able to do wholesaling, but now we've been able to transition to buying more multifamily. So we still have that big old machine going on with the wholesaling, but now we are starting to take down more properties ourselves. Do some fix and flips every once in a while, but I wouldn't say that that's quite my niche. I just do it if I think that it makes sense to get in and out of pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So, how long have you been in real estate? How long have you been in the game?
Yeah, I've been in it since about 2017. So I started with a brokerage for a little bit, and then I started realizing I was doing all the acquisitions. So this brokerage was a real estate investment one here in Orlando. And I was doing all the acquisitions. I was handling a lot of the dispositions, and also doing all the marketing. And then I was only getting like 50% of the deal. So, but they were great people. They're still buyers of mine till to this day with the brokers. So they're still good friends of mine. But at a certain point, I'm not going to do all the work and only get 50%, right?
Yeah. So you're one of those few people that actually kind of get into the business with a job in real estate and somehow get out of that job and become an entrepreneur. That doesn't happen all
Yeah.
the time. It seems like most of the people that I talk to come from outside, right? Or they were like, real estate was my freedom. That was my way to get out of that other job I had, right? Have you seen that too?
Yeah. Yeah, so my first job out of college was actually a corporate recruiting position. So I used to try recruiting engineers. And I used to work with a lot of the local defensive contractors here in the market. And it was a really interesting position. You got to learn some pretty crazy projects people were working on, but I'll tell you what, it was nothing that I was passionate about. So I then started listening to a lot more like Bigger Pockets throughout all my appointment times. I was always listening to a podcast. And then one day I just was like, you know what? I'm going to save up luckily enough, my wife was cool with it. Well, at that time she was my girlfriend, so even more cool. For me to be able to save up about 3 months of expenses. And then I went right into doing it with a brokerage. And then I was with them for about a year and a half. And like I said, at a certain point, I was just doing a lot of the different roles and then decided to go out on my own after that.
Love it, love it. So, so you took that path to get in there, smart, and save up some expenses, some living money, right
Yeah.
before you jump into it. So, when you were working with the brokerage, were you buying anything on your own? Were you getting any investment deals yourself, or how was that? That was just
No,
for the.
no, that was just I was just feeding their beast. They had a whole entire wholesaling division, and I was just essentially a salesman.
Okay, okay. So, how did you make that switch? How did you get in there and say, you know what, I'm going to start doing this. I want to invest. I want to either hold or get more of the deal and do it myself. How'd that happen?
Well, exactly what you just said, right? So I started learning. That was probably the good part, is that there was a bit of a hand-holding situation, right? Learning from the brokers gave me also a lot more time to understand the law of the land here. Right at that time, it was just only pretty much Central Florida, right? So started getting better connections, better networking, understanding marketing a little bit more, and then being able to just understand that I was being able to start doing it for the company. And I was like, all right, well, I was able to get them a fair amount of success. Let me get myself some of that success, because at the end of the day, I think we all want to jump into wholesaling and understand that it can give us a lot of freedom. But at the end of the day, it's still a very much a hunting position, right? So I wanted to get into making sure I was starting to buy in some of my passive income.
Yes, yes, you nailed it right there on the head. That wholesaling, I mean, it's hunting, right? It's hunting,
Mm-hmm.
always chasing, always running. I just spoke to yesterday a mentor of mine, really smart guy. Has been doing this for, I don't know, probably 50 years now. Not
Wow.
exaggerating. I think he did it very, very young, and he's not that young anymore. But he is looking at all of us younger folks. He's like,
Yeah.
all these people are just doing this, chasing the wholesale, and they're flipping the deals, and they're missing the point of real estate, which is buying and holding,
Absolutely.
and generate that. It's not, they say passive. It's the cash flow, generating the wealth, the increasing the cash that you bring in, not just spending it and spending it and spending it.
Man,
When he said,
it's so true because I learned it. I learned that same lesson from some of the more the wisdom, right? You love the wisdom that they
yeah,
had because at that
yeah,
time they probably didn't know what like something like wholesaling was. They just knew to buy and hold something. And
yeah.
if you've held anything for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, I mean, it's gone up like crazy.
Oh yeah, yeah. And that's exactly what this guy was talking about. He's got plenty of money now. He doesn't have to worry about
Yeah.
anything, right? So, well, that's cool. So, tell me a little bit. So, this podcast, Deal Finders podcast, we like to figure out
Right.
how do people find deals, and kind of talk a little bit about maybe how you got your first one, and then how you're finding them today. So,
Hmm.
your first deal, the first one you actually got to keep. How did you find that one?
The first wholesale deal I ever did.
Yeah, or one that you were able to keep, whatever the first one was that was you out there on your own.
Yeah. So the first one out of my own was I did a lot of direct mail at the beginning of that. I think we had a very common coach that we were mentioning a little bit earlier with Tom Kroll, and I did a lot of direct mail at that time. And I actually found it a good spot in the greater Orlando area, and it's called Altamont Springs. It's just north of Orlando. And I was able to farm that area really well with direct mail, and I was getting a lot of properties in Altamont Springs for quite some time. So that was actually probably one of my better hotbeds. I would find, I would go on an appointment at one spot. So this was always a really great one that I love to be able to do to really deal find and beat bootstrap and stuff, right? So I would go on the appointment and be able to obviously go meet with the seller about their property. And then at that time, I wasn't nearly as crazy busy. I didn't overly complicate things. And then I would take another 30 minutes after, and I'd drive the neighborhood, right? And so I drive the neighborhood, and then sure enough, I would be able to find more properties, write them down, or if I saw that the people were out there, go ahead and chat with them and see if they were also interested in any of their houses that looked like they had some issues going on. So I was able to get a good backyard feeling for Altamont Springs pretty quickly that way. So my direct mail led me to a neighborhood, that led me to an appointment, that led me to finding other deals in that neighborhood.
Oh man, I love that.
Hmm.
That's pure gold right there. That is a secret, a hidden tip. That's one of those things that it is plain as day right in front of us, but we just don't do it. Guys, I hope
Yeah.
y'all heard that. I hope you wrote that down. The postcard led you to a neighborhood for an appointment, and you didn't just stop there. If you're in that neighborhood, look at the neighborhood. Look around you, you guys. Driving through for dollars, look for the houses that are overgrown. And the key thing that I heard right there was talk to the neighbors, talk to people. Like just run up the
Yeah.
window and say, hey, would you want to sell? Or do you know this guy that hadn't cut his grass in 3 years? Does he want to sell?
Hmm.
Uh, that's amazing. And so you use that as kind of like your home base. You said you kind of started farming
Yeah.
that neighborhood and got a few deals there.
Yeah, it was like I
Awesome.
said,
So
it's super easy to be able to do it that way too. It doesn't cost you any extra money, just an extra 30 minutes of time.
yeah, and we talk. A lot of the Deal Finders Club are people that are getting started or trying to set up um, deal finding flow without spending a whole bunch of extra marketing dollars. And that's one of the things
Right.
that we talk about is like you have to open your eyes and you have to say, you have to mentally become a deal finder and say,
Hmm.
I'm going to look everywhere I am. I'm going to talk to people everywhere I am and ask, do you want to sell your property? Would you consider an offer, right? Just
Yeah.
ask the question. So it's a mentality switch. So I love that you did that. You were probably kind of already in that game and really comfortable with it. Uh, what would you say to somebody that's isn't coming from a real estate business or job and is now in that neighborhood? Like, how do they get over that hump mentally?
How bad do you really want it, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that old saying always comes into play that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it, right? It's the same exact thing. The water is the neighborhood. Now, are you going to go around and go checking for those properties, or are you going to just, drive through it and not? It's completely fine on whichever one you decide, but I just realized that was a very good way to get immediate success in being able to farm an area.
Love it. Love it. How bad do you want it, guys? How bad do you want it? All right. So tell me now, David, that was where you got started. Where are you now, and kind of what's your business look like now?
Yeah, so our team is actually very remote now. So we have cold callers that we use. We do the entire state of Florida, and then we're also always going into some other markets here and there. We've been in parts of Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina. So we've been able to pick a couple of different states that we've worked into. The team now for the wholesaling side is 2 lead managers, 2 closers typically. We just had to let one of them go, so I've jumped in and done a couple more closings myself recently until I find that new person. And then we have somebody who's like the disposition qualifier and then the disposition closer. The qualifier is somebody that is making the write-ups, doing all of the marketing pieces, like maybe sending out an email, sending out the text to that, and then once we find a very pretty qualified buyer, the closer comes in and gets the deal done. And then we have a transaction coordinator and a data manager.
Wow. You got a big team there. How many, and I don't really like to do the numbers all the time, but to support a team like this, you got to be bringing in a fair amount of deals each month, right? What does that look like?
It's a yes and a no. We've been able to... yes, we are bringing in more deals, but there's a caveat to the virtual world. It's not going to be nearly as efficient and effective as somebody here. It's the truth. You got to understand that. You got to take it with a grain of salt. You're paying a lot less, but I always make sure that I'm taking a lot of time, especially in the morning. My first hour is 30 minutes with dispositions and 30 minutes with acquisitions. We're going through, we're training. Yeah. We're going through and we're training. We're letting them know, hey, here's the properties coming up in the pipeline, or in the acquisitions world, what are the objections that you're going through? So we're always making sure that we're training, role-playing, being able to do that. That entire team, the closers are based off of commissions, and the other team, it's all virtual. I would say that it seems like it's probably a lot of people and that it's a lot of overhead, but it's not as much as you would expect.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Being virtual can allow you to support that team and keep it going. That's awesome. That's one of the things that I am not great at, and I'm so glad there's people that can do that. I need to hire someone on my team that can manage virtual people, but I'm a people person. I grew up in the hospitality industry. That's where I came from. So it's like we're all in the office, right? We got everybody.
Yeah, I totally get it.
And that's just how we operate. I tried virtual people. We do have one person that's been with us since the very beginning, but when we try to put them in like key roles, that's not me. So that's awesome. So that's cool. So you are obviously closing a bunch of deals, and you've got to have a really strong acquisition team, and you said you're training them all the time. You were telling me about this really cool strategy that I want to hear a little bit more about, which is the triple threat. What do we call it? The triple offer?
Yeah, triple offer approach. Triple threat's pretty good too, though. I like that. That's good.
Yeah, I like that. That just rolled off the tongue. It's the triple threat. Let's go. So that's how you're presenting your offer, not on all the deals, but on some particular deals. Can you maybe share some of that with our listeners so they could take away that strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. So just like how we have in the wholesaling world, right? You got to understand your avatar, right? So in the wholesaling world, that's typically a distressed seller, right? So if you're doing, say, like a marketing campaign for somebody who's delinquent on their taxes, that's your avatar. Somebody who's behind on their taxes and needs to sell their property, right? So the triple offer approach, it's not quite the same avatar. The avatar is somebody who has a lot of equity or free and clear properties. So that's number one. That's a little bit more of a difference. What I like to be able to do is I like to tackle more multifamily than I like single family. And the reason being is because the avatar is different. The avatar is different because the multifamily was probably an investor. So two of the offers that we do in the triple offer are owner financing, right? And what I've learned, and not that I haven't been able to do the seller financing for single family, but the people who grip it really quickly are the investors, right? So being able to go after multifamily where people were investors, that offer 2 and offer 3 is usually pretty easy for them to understand, or it's not as complicated as it is maybe somebody who's never heard of anything with financing before and doesn't understand that.
Right. Yeah, it makes good sense. So you've got your avatar, a lot of equity, maybe someone that understands investing or compound interest or some of those things, right? So
Right.
a little bit more educated on those things, right? And investors tend to get it. All right, so that's our
Exactly.
avatar. And then what do we do?
Right. So after being able to identify the avatar, what's very critical then is being able to understand what that person's motivation is and what price are they set at. That is very critical, and that's where the acquisitions training comes in, right? Because like a case study I have, and I'll probably be doing like a webinar on it pretty soon. I had somebody who had a 4-unit over in it's a city called Leesburg, and he was fixated on $280,000. He was absolutely fixated on it, but the property needed a whole bunch of work, right? So the 3 offer approach is how we come into a reality, right? So we call it the illusion of control. That's from like Chris Voss, right? So never split the difference. If anybody hasn't picked up that book, it's an amazing book, right? So I don't want to get into a dispute of, hey, I can't come to that price and you can't come down to my price, right? So what we do is we create that triple offer. The first offer is like a cash wholesale, as is like kind of property and price. So that's the first one. That does, that anchors them. That brings them down. Now they thought 280. I'm coming in at like, I'm coming in at probably 180 or 160 or something like that. I'm coming in pretty low, right? But what that does is that sets up the other 2 offers pretty well. So the second one is called our steering wheel. The steering wheel, it's crafted so it's a lot closer to the cash offer, but it's still further away for it to separate itself. So you want to make sure, like, so I said 280, right? For what the guy was asking for. We made like an offer at like 180 on cash. We then made an offer at about 230 for the second offer. And so then what does that do? That one is an interest one that has amortization. It's probably lower with a down payment, and it's probably a little bit lower with the monthly payment. Or no, actually, I'm sorry. It's a little bit higher on the monthly payment, but the way that we structure the third one is why it's so appealing. The third one is going to be even at their price or maybe even higher, but that's principal only. That's 0% interest, principal only. That one usually comes with a little bit higher of a down payment, and it's a little bit lower on the monthly payment for them. So we're able to get them hooked in, as opposed to them saying no, they're going to say, I picked that one.
Right. So what your goal is this is not a yes or no question. Your goal is, which one would you like to choose? What color Ferrari do you want? Right.
Bingo.
We're going to go with here's the options. We know you want to sell. We know you want this number. Here's where we are realistically, and we can close this, in 30 days. Yeah. So
and the obvious thing on this one too, for sure, is understanding hopefully if you structure it right, and so that's part of what I teach. If you structure it right, no matter what, you win, right? You're behind door 1, 2, and 3. If they pick one, okay, it's a wholesale deal, not a problem. Deal number 2. Okay, it's a seller financing deal. I just now have interest on it, but it's not as much of a down payment. Or the cherry on top is getting the principal only, right? So then we're able to bend the reality and go, well, you know what? I can actually get you above that. because and we were willing to make that offer above. I actually made the offer at 300, and he was only asking 280, right? And so my second offer was 230.
How many years did you stretch that principal only out?
So the principal only, we only were going to do it for 5 years.
Yeah.
And then it was going to have a balloon payment. But the thing is it has principal only once again. So what we did is that we structured it. And that's the beauty. Like we gave a little bit more of a down payment. I brought in a private lender. So the private lender is paying for my down payment. And then I just have 60 payments of principal only. And so that takes off the way I structured it. It took off another 25% of what the total price point is. So at the amortization, or when the balloon payment was due, we already had 50% of the property paid off.
Right.
5 years.
That's incredible. In 5 years, and easy to refi or sell at that point.
All the above.
Yeah. So this is we're gonna call it the triple threat option. What is it? Triple threat offer.
Triple offer. Yeah.
You could go ahead and put that on T-shirts now. Go ahead and trademark it. That's awesome. I mean, I love the way you've obviously put a lot of time into this. You've obviously done it a lot of times with different sellers to understand kind of where to place those numbers and what to tweak. And guys, one of the things that I have a challenge with, right, is I get these numbers and creative finance that's kind of like in my brain. I'm like, oh yeah, we can tweak the interest, we can do this, we can do that. But my acquisitions team, that's a lot for them to try to figure out. Well, 2% interest versus 0 interest. What does this look like and all that. So if you're able to just nail this down and say, okay, we've got 3 options. It's always going to be 3% interest, with 10% down, and that's your steering wheel, right? Whatever that is. I love that because now your team can do this, right?
I typically like to be able to do the negotiations myself on that. I usually let them do the cash one, right? So I'll let them set the standard of what that's going to be like. And so what we usually do is we have them either set up an appointment or they'll just transfer the call over to me. And then from there, I'll start being able to tweak around with it. But we do at least have them pretty much set up one and then get them open to, are you open to creative terms or creative financing or terms? And then from there, if they're open to it, then boom, now we can set the table.
Yeah, I love it. And so what's your close rate? Do you have a close ratio? Have you been counting how many times it works and doesn't work?
Yeah, so like I said, we don't use it as much as you would use like a cash offer, right? So at the end of the day, we're at like 5 for 8 on it just this year.
Okay. Yeah, it's awesome. That's that many more, right?
Yeah. And then once I structure something, I mean, like I said, it's a principal only 4 unit. So you tell me where I'm going to be going wrong on it.
Yeah, you're not going wrong on this deal. I can tell you that right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys, I hope you took notes on that. I hope everyone that's listening wrote that down, and we will give some contact info for David if you want some more information on how to do that, or if you missed something, you didn't quite understand it. I'm sure he will be glad to help you with that. We'll just put your contact info in the show notes so that everyone can get a hold of you. David, this has been awesome. This is an incredible trick, tip. Put it in your tool belt,
Exactly.
People are going out there that are trying to get deals closed, because as you know, when you're in front of that seller, it's taken a lot to get there, and we don't want to lose those sellers. If we can come up with a win-win situation, we come up with something that solves their problem and doesn't lose us money, then we are going to win. So
and then honestly, the thing is too is that we are actually 6 for 8. But one of them just had a crazy amount of title issues, and the family had a probate, and they didn't want to move forward with it. I even offered to pay it, and we found out there's like so many other people that were attached to it and trying to catch everybody. That situation, right? So once we found out that the probate now had to get extended out nationwide, and we had to track down all these people, the seller just completely ghosted us and didn't want to deal with anything. It actually does a little bit better, but we're always going to have a couple issues that get hit every once in a while. But it's Yeah, it's been able to do really well for us. It's just like I said, it's just something supplementary. Yeah, I mean, something to just no, not supplementary. My apologies, complementary to what you
Yeah.
do in day out. You can just add it into that very quickly, as you meant, another tool in the tool belt.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey guys, put that in your tool belt. Yeah, practice it, try it. Go ahead and work with the numbers and use that on your sellers so that you can find a solution that works for both of you. So, hey, I hope you got some actual steps here. This podcast is here so that you can learn something to go out and find a deal today. We want you to go out, take the steps to get started in real estate or build your business on continual referral deals that keep coming to you without you having to pay for them. So guys, if you can get all the information you need right here in the podcast to go get a deal. But if you do want to join our community and connect with the Deal Finders Club, just go to reidealfinders.club and you can connect there and join up. All right? So we will see you on the next one. Thanks, David.
Thank you. Hey, pleasure,
All
and
right.
absolutely crush it, my man.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to put a little marker there. I've never tried that before, but now I'm going to try to do the closing. I was writing notes. Let's see.
So you run the REI live over there, huh?
Yeah, I do the REI Live.
Oh, so you know Brian Tripp and like Marlena and stuff like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
Yeah, I remember me
how
and
do I
Brian Tripp when he
do?
first did it in Birmingham a few years back, and then Marlena runs obviously the one here in Orlando.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Marlena's great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to figure out how I got to do this intro. Let's see. All right, guys. Okay. Yeah, I got it. I'm going to do it real quick. Hey guys, welcome to the. Nope, I messed that up. Welcome to today's Deal Finders podcast, where we have David Pupo, and he's going to show us and tell us how he closes extra deals that would have been lost and gone with no income, closes them with his special triple offer solution that has got sellers picking how they want him to buy their house just the way he wants. He's always winning with every option. So you're going to want to stay tuned as we break down his last deal to get a fourplex paying principal only for the next 5 years. Stay tuned. Hey, that worked.
Hey, that's great.
Yeah,
That's a great intro. I'm glad that you waited to do it at the end.
yeah, I kind of like the way that
You felt
worked.
because you had more information to do it. That was good. Yeah, if somebody
Yeah,
heard
exactly.
heard that one, I'd be like, oh shit.